Hello and welcome to episode 26 of Adult Music, the podcast with music for the mature mind. Russ and Mike here
this is Mike over here.
Over there, and we're in very hot and sticky Japan.
Yeah, it's not so sticky. It's just hot. You know, I like the hot.
Dry.
I like hot. I don't like the sticky and humid, you know.
Yeah, some strange
I feel
weather.
like I'm at the beach.
3 typhoons blowing through in consecutive order. Luckily, we're going to be out of the line of most of them.
Miraculously, because we're usually not. But
usually not.
This year it looks like we're good. Yeah, we're going to miss the typhoons. Oh, but I'm a little bummed because I kind of want to... I have all this great music I want to talk about, but we are going to take a little break, aren't we? What's going to happen?
We're going to have to take a little bit of a hiatus because of life events.
We're having issues with the mountain lair, shall we say? So we have
something like that.
The real world is knocking on the door, and we have to take care of some personal business. So we're going to take some time off. Do you want to say how much? Because I'm not really sure.
We're going to be back. Should be the second week of September, I believe.
Second week of September. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. It should be then. Yeah, probably we'll have a new episode up we usually publish Monday morning. So that'll be September 13th. We should be back at that. So it's a bit of a break. On the jazz side, that will be actually good for me because I have a whole list of releases that I want to discuss and I want to listen to, but they're not available on streaming yet, or only one teaser track is available, which is really annoying. But hopefully in the upcoming weeks, I'll be able to hear all of them and then sort them into good combinations to make episodes out of. It seems to be that, I don't know, there were a lot of spring releases in jazz, but summer seems to be that labels are holding back on some things. I don't know if they've just figured they're not going to have a lot of listeners over the holidays when people are outside doing things or something. But
August is generally a kind of slow month for classical releases too, but July was a huge month, and I've got a backlog of stuff again that I can talk about. And we actually talked about me doing the podcast solo for 3 or 4 weeks, but you have to... I think the Russ and Mike kind of musical relationship has to take precedence here, because I'm just not going to be happy talking about recordings without Russ hearing them. Because I think part of the reason we do this podcast is because I want Russ to hear all these like classical recordings that I'm listening to, and we would sort of talk about them together. So
that's
I don't
the
think
whole
it would
point.
Be as enjoyable. Yeah.
Right. You know, we share things, and then we hope that you out there who are listening to us, who mostly remain silent. We know you're listening, but we don't. Yeah. We could always get some more feedback from you. But you know, that's what it's about: sharing the music, and we love to spend the time to search out and listen to things. And Mike actually, you know, buys most of these things. As you can, if you could see him right now, he could be seriously injured or lost under the stack of collapsing CDs that are accumulating in his abode there.
I could potentially die the same death that Charles Valentin Alcan died. Well, theoretically, this turns out not to be a true story, but legend has it that he died when a 19th century bookshelf, which are these heavy things, fell on him while reaching for a copy of the Talmud on the top shelf, which turns out not to be true. Apparently, like some coat rack fell on him and he kind of fell on the floor and sort of, I guess he in his head. But things, I could potentially be crushed to death by a shelf of CDs falling on me.
Yeah.
Something that no one else I know has, that won't happen to anybody else I know. Unless they're in my place and it happens.
They may just get like, well, you can't even die from strangulation from headphone cords because everyone's using Bluetooth now. So, we'll be a low-tech death if we died like that. But, seriously, the sharing of it is the good part. I mean, I finally, when I had ordered the Mike Ladon, It's All Your Fault CD. The day after I ordered, I got a notice that this is temporarily out of stock. And so I waited. And of course, I had listened to it on streaming, but I wanted to own that one because we talked with him. And I finally got it. And then another place where I share music is with my barber. And I've been going to the same barber for more than 20 years. And he's a music fan and a hi-fi nut. He loves to buy all of this used hi-fi stuff. And I guess if he keeps it in his barbershop, his wife doesn't know what he's buying. So he has all of these British speakers out of the 50s and 60s and turntables. And he's always buying used things. So when I go there for my haircut, I bring one or two recordings and then he shares with me what he has. So I shared with him the Mike Ladon and he really liked it. And he said, Yappari Hammond to Natsu ga yoko awa desho ne. So Hammond organ and summertime goes together. I said, yeah, it sure does.
I guess I think the Hammond organ goes with all four seasons.
All seasons, yeah.
Yeah.
But, the thing of it is, that's where the joy comes with sharing the music. So I can understand. I mean, I don't think I would want to get on here and just talk myself about the music. If we can bounce it off with each other, that's a nice thing. And we tell each other, hey, this is what we're going to listen to this week. And we wait and see what each other thought of it. And then hopefully you listeners check it out on the playlist or on the links and, gives you some ideas too. So, I mean, that's where the fun lies. But anyway, we'll have to take a few weeks off. We've had a good run, straight 26 weeks, but, I feel bad leaving the listeners alone on the beach, but you'll be okay on the beach. Just read a book. Okay. And if you haven't listened to all of the episodes and interviews yet, this is a good time to go back and catch up.
Yeah, and more importantly, download or listen to the music that we've posted, because that's really what this is all about. We want you to hear this music the way we listen to it, and there's loads of it, so I don't think you're going to get bored. So, please go back and check some of those recordings out, and we'll be back with a lot of new ones in September, as well as we're going to have, because I'm kind of crazy about this, we're going to have our comments about the Gramophone Magazine Classical Music Awards, because they will be announcing their shortlists for their albums of the year, probably around September, the beginning of September, and we'll want to comment on those. It's also a good chance to look back at some of the releases we may have already talked about.
You know how I feel about awards.
Yeah, but the Gramophone Awards are okay because they tend to choose good things. It's not the Grammys. I mean, that's a different thing.
Okay, I don't know if I can do that again. That was painful.
We'll probably change the Grammy one this year. We probably won't do that. Although I did like talking about the jazz ones.
Yeah, those are a little better.
Enjoyed listening to those. The classical one was a little too much. Maybe we'll just do the gramophone classical ones. We'll ignore the Grammy classical awards. I don't know.
It can only get
give
worse.
It a cursory mention or something. I don't know.
So speaking of listening to the links and the tunes, just to remind the listeners that everything we talk about, you'll find those links to Spotify and Apple Music. And I should say, Apple Music, I didn't realize this, but they've gone full CD quality finally. I guess that was back in June. So that was one of the reasons I switched over to Deezer. But
now you can switch back. But I'm going to stick with Deezer.
Yeah, I'll just stay here. Getting too old
French
to switch.
Too. I kind of dig that.
They're French, and that's going to go along with this week's theme. But right there in the description, you'll find a link also on Deezer to the full episode playlist. So you can get all the music in one place. You won't have to click for each album title on Spotify or Apple. So if you haven't checked out Deezer, they have a nice catalog, CD quality sound, and a nice simple interface. And you can also listen to the podcast there and see our playlist each week. Usually a week before we put the episode up, I get it up early, and that's under the username Adult Music Podcast. You can also add yourself to our list there, and that'll be shared with you. Now, if you can't see the full description or the links on whatever app you're listening on, you can come over to our host site, which is Podbean, and then all the links and descriptions are easy to see and follow. Now, if you enjoy the podcast, please do follow or subscribe on whatever app or platform you're listening to us on. Take a minute, give us a ranking or write a review. That'll help us keep being listed in the browsing category recommendations, and that helps us grow our audience. And again, if you'd like to contact us personally, directly with any comments or questions, we'd love to hear from you. Our email address is adultmusicpodcast, that's all one word, @gmail.com.
Yeah. But earlier you talked about owning CDs, and I've finally got my hands on. Daniel Bernardson will be happy to hear this. I finally got hard copies of the two Ranitsky.
Oh, you got the Ranitsky
CDs. I got both of them. And we'll definitely get the third one when it comes out. We can't
October.
say when. We don't even know. He's not.
October,
we're not supposed to say.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not supposed to say that. Okay.
Yeah, he said not to say.
Forget I said.
He just
that.
said it. Okay, forget he said that.
Oh.
Well, that's what he thinks. He's not sure, but anyway, he's because he doesn't know. You know, and let's not get into that. But I do have 2 hard copies of those now.
Oh, that's good.
And it turns out both of these albums were recorded at the same, in the same period of time.
Right, over a few days.
And last week, I had mentioned on the podcast that I thought that Volume 2 was recorded in the reverse order of that we heard them in.
Right.
Okay. And Daniel, of course, wrote back to us. What did he say? Am I right?
Well, he said that was actually recorded first, La Tempesta.
Tempesta was first.
Yeah.
So I was wrong.
Yeah, you were wrong.
Oh, as usual. So anyway, here in the 26th episode, we've definitely ascertained that I really don't know what I'm talking about. So I've decided to give up commenting on music and go into a field that people go into who don't know what they're talking about, and that is politics. I'll be running for office this autumn. I feel like that's my calling because I don't know what I'm talking about. There you go. It was a guess, though. Anyway,
it was a conjecture.
Daniel was very nice too. Yeah.
Anyway,
it was very nice to tell us because actually he had mentioned that if we'd read the notes that we'd know, but actually it doesn't say that. The recording dates just say like the period. It time that the recordings were made, and it doesn't tell us the
order of the pieces.
Yeah.
Well, they're both really, you want to check out both of these albums.
We hope you're listening to those. Listen to those first if you're on the beach and you're missing us, okay, this summer.
Listen to those albums both. And I guess it's just that the La Tempesta is just so interesting and fun.
I like that.
It grabs you in. That should be on,
That's on Volume 2.
That should be on all kinds of live performance programs. I don't see how you could go wrong with having that piece
should
in
the
there,
other works. I think they're all really good. Yeah,
sure. But I think just to get the name Ranitsky into people's minds, and then they want to hear more. All the symphonies are really, really good. So
we're interested in this project, and we have no monetary reason to be. We're just genuinely interested. Yeah. So we want you to hear these works. Give them a listen.
No one's listened to them for a couple hundred years, and now you can hear modern ensembles playing these works, and they're really, really good.
Yeah, speaking of works that haven't been heard in hundreds of years, there's quite a bit of that coming out now, which is kind of nice in classical music. Anyway, so there we go. All right, so today we have in classical music, we have an all French program, and I think in jazz is mostly French. So of course we're going to call this episode French Me Again, Baby. Because why? Because that was our most popular episode.
Most popular
Baby
title,
it was our most popular title. That and the Fiesta one, for some reason, was our most popular title. So we're going to go for the big downloads once again.
Yeah, shamelessly going for the title. Because
we're shameless. Oh, just wait. We're going to start trying to monetize soon too. You're just going to hate us. Maybe after the break, because
keep listening.
Yeah. I don't know. We're going to try to get some ads. We'll see.
I've got some ideas for new jazz interviews and things in the fall. So
I got one or two ideas too. We'll see. And some things fall in our lap. It's kind of nice. It's been a really pleasant and surprising experience so far.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
We're further along than we really thought we would be. We'd just be talking out into the ether, and 30 people in Japan would be listening to us. But we've got a lot of listeners around the world, especially in the USA, and that's kind of cool.
USA is
European
big.
Listeners are starting to pick up. It's good.
Europe is picking up, and India has stayed strong. So all you listeners in India, thanks for hanging in and listening to us there. At some point, we're going to have to get some kind of Indian-influenced music to talk about in there too.
Okay,
so
we're going to talk about that. We'll have to get an Indian guest on to help us.
We could do that as well.
It.
All right, send your emails to adultmusicpodcast. At gmail.com.
Okay.
Yes.
I know a bit about like Indian raga, but I'm not enough to be able to kind of dissect it and kind of explain it. How this performance is, I don't know, somebody with ears more attuned to that music than mine would have to talk about it. I can just enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know? All right. Anyway. All right. So anyway, let's get into classical music and let's get Frenched. Because we got an all French program in classical music today. Can't wait.
Yeah.
I was reading this book. I think it's Jeffrey Eugenides, the Virgin Suicides, and this one kid. It's pretty much high school age kids in that who are kind of telling the story. And this one guy makes out with a girl, and he kind of talks about how like she was like French kissing him, like and wildly and all this stuff. He says, he said, I felt like, so there's a lot of tonguing going on, and he finally says, I felt like a stamp. Which I thought was a hilarious comment. I've never heard anything like that.
I felt like a stamp, yeah.
I felt like a stamp. Well, I had a very enjoyable week listening to these, not only because it was all French music, and I pretty much liked it all, but it was all SACD. I have hard copies of all of these.
Oh.
And these are all Super Audio CD recordings, 2 of them on the Beast label, and one is on Chandos. And let me say something about SACD if listeners don't really know about this. An SACD has 3 layers of information on it. Now, the first layer is just regular CD information. So if you don't have an SACD player, you just have a CD player, you can still play these. You'll just play the CD layer, and it'll sound like a CD. But if you have an SACD player, there are 2 layers of SACD information. One of them is the 2-channel layer, which is the same as the CD layer, except that it's a much higher sampling rate, and it sounds a lot cleaner and richer. The sound is very focused.
Would it be very warm? DSD.
DSD, they're all DSD,
format,
of course.
rather than PCM.
But I don't know that it's just the DSD, the format. I think that helps, but it's also the higher sampling rate. It just sounds a lot.
Well, that's what's involved in the format. Yeah. There are problems with that format in some people's opinion too, but the people who enjoy it, and both of us being in that category, I feel more spaciousness and a different sort of presentation of high frequencies in that format, in the really good recordings, the ones that are native DSD recordings.
Yeah, and I want to say something else about that. Those high frequencies. People say, well, why bother recording the high frequencies? People can't hear them. But it's believed that the presence of the higher frequencies affects the way we hear the lower frequencies. We don't know this, but it probably does have some kind of effect. You don't really want to just dismiss things that you're not immediately aware of, because they could be having some effect that you're not aware of.
They bounce off your ear hairs.
You think it's the ear hairs?
I think it's the ear hairs, yeah.
Oh, okay. It could be. Super Audio CD, by the way, has one more layer, and that is the surround sound layer. And I actually have a 5-channel and 1 subwoofer system. It's a small one, but it's by Onkyo, and I use that at the moment. I'm hoping to upgrade this within the next year or two. But so I can actually hear those. And speaking about spaciousness, first of all, you're hearing the higher sampling rate and that nice warm sound, but now you're also getting a separation of the stage, and the 2 rear channels are usually just kind of ambient. So there's kind of like an echo. You want to keep those fairly quiet. But it gives like a sense of even more presence and warmth. It's really wonderful. You can kind of get a sense of like that the whole space is around you is being used. It's kind of cool. Now, they'll usually like label these recordings like 5.1. The 0.1 means that the subwoofer is being used, but all 3 of these recordings are 5.0. It seems like classical music labels don't like using the subwoofer.
I'm not a fan myself. I understand the arguments for people who like it. I suppose if you listen to organ music or something, it's kind of you can really kind of
blow
necessary
your
to get
brains
those
out
lowest
with
frequencies, but
you get that chest cavity feeling. And speaking of which, you hit the nail on the head there. If you have surround sound, if you have like a 5-channel system, you definitely want to get a surround organ recording, because those are the most spectacular sounding records there are. Because if you've ever walked into like a European church while the organ is being played, I mean, the sound is, it's coming from the pipes, but it's like bouncing off the walls everywhere, and you're sort of submerged in it.
Spatial features of it are really important.
And that happens on surround sound organ recordings as well. So pick one up. I'll recommend one. How about Masaaki Suzuki's first volume 1 of his Bach organ works on the Beast label? That would be an excellent one to have. It's got the toccata in D minor that everybody loves. Da-da-da, da-da-da, da, that one. The one they play in the haunted house movies, even though they really shouldn't, because it's a spiritual work.
That's right.
Yeah, it's not scary. It's deeply spiritual, like everything Bach did. All right, so anyway, Super Audio CD, there you go. All right. Now, the first recording we have is on the Beast label, and this is called La Clarinette Parisienne. And the musicians here are Michael Collins on the clarinet and Noriko Ogawa on the piano.
They don't sound like Parisians, Collins and Ogawa.
They are, but the thing is, their names don't sound Parisienne, but their playing does.
Yes, it does,
pretty remarkable. This is a fantastic release. I liked this from beginning to end. And I really have nothing negative to say about the playing. In fact, I have something positive I want to say. Now, the thing is, I've heard Michael Collins play the clarinet like for 10, 20 years now. I've heard him on recordings, and he's always great. He's just a fantastic. He's got a great tone.
Oh, yeah. His tone is lovely. Yeah.
So, and he's got a great musicality to him. And
phrasing is great.
I knew there was going to be no problem with this. Now, Noriko Ogawa, I've heard her play solo, and this is back in the 2000s or the late 90s. She was doing like Debussy solo piano recordings, and I thought they were okay. So she wasn't really a favorite pianist of mine, but I thought she was just fantastic here. So I think she's either matured a lot as a musician, or maybe I just wasn't listening properly back in those days. I really don't know. But she sounds great on all of these recordings. Like, she has a real feel for the color and the timbre, the touch needed for French music. Okay, so I just loved both of them together. This was just a fantastic release. Okay, it's kind of an interesting program, because all of these works, except for the Poulenc, were written for the Conservatoire as like test pieces for the students, interestingly enough. All right, and they're all in different styles. It's kind of interesting. The first one is, I'll explain that in a minute. They're all from, except for the Poulenc too, they're all from around the turn of the 20th century. So the late 1800s, the early 1900s. Okay, so around 100 years ago, 120 years ago now. Although 100 years ago, I guess, because the Saint-Saëns is written in 1920, the year before he died. All right, anyway, let's start with Debussy, Première Rapsodie for clarinet and piano. This was a test piece, and it really, it's in Debussy's, and he hated this expression, and I kind of don't like it to use it either, because I know he didn't like it, the impressionistic kind of feeling that he gets. Now, what it is like he's really all about timbre, tone, color, things like this. So he's not really going to make you kind of move your hands really fast on the keys on the clarinet or on the piano. Well, no, he does at times, but he's more about the tone, the sustained beauty of the sound, and that sort of thing. And he's really looking for that. Now, remember, this was a test piece originally for students at the Conservatoire, and it sort of tests that. Now, this was also kind of like a new style of composing at the time, and not everybody was into it. Okay, but I like this piece a lot. It's not one of my favorite Debussy pieces, but I find it really enjoyable. It kind of has this kind of like nice sort of like sensuality to it, shall we say. It's really about its sound. And again, I can't really say much, except for to praise the two musicians in all of these works. They just sound fantastic. Okay. The next work is by Charles-Marie Vidor. Now, he's really famous for his organ works. So this was a little unusual. Introduction et Rondo for clarinet and piano. Sort of a traditional style. Saint-Saëns wrote a lot of these introductions and rondos too. And this was, this was the first time I had ever heard this piece. It was immediately appealing. I liked it a lot. Oh boy, I don't have my I don't have my notes already here. You open your booklet to the notes and you get them in German, and I don't understand what this is saying. I hate when they do that. All right. I know they're in English here somewhere. One moment. Okay,
I like
here we
this
go.
one. He shows his agility here, but I feel the strength of his playing, other than his lovely tone, is his phrasing.
Yeah.
And then this one also has some lines that need to be more articulate. You know, Debussy has a lot of legato things.
Right.
Those sound really good in
tones.
They're very liquid. So here he has to articulate, but what I wrote, it's articulation like melting butter. You know, so
that's a good.
It's clear. You can see through. You know, if you imagine you're pouring it on your broccoli or your popcorn, you can see through it. So you can hear everything, but yet it's so soft that you know, it just flows so well.
Yeah, this one is different than the Debussy, though. It's like a contrast. It's a display piece, very much. Okay, so this would be one to see if the kids can keep up in the conservatory. Okay, now the centerpiece, well, maybe not. This and the Poulenc. The next piece is Saint-Saëns, Camille Saint-Saëns. Now remember, this is the 100th anniversary of his death this year, and we're hearing quite a bit of his music pop up on a lot of these recordings, which kind of makes me happy. This one is a sonata for clarinet and piano, opus, get this, 167. Now, by the way, those of you who aren't aware of classical terminology, the opus number is the number of the work in the order of publication, not the order of composition. Sometimes they're the same, okay, but the opus number tells you about the order that these works were published in. This becomes important in Beethoven's music because some of his early music was published later and has higher, like opus numbers, which is really weird. It makes it hard to figure out. But just keep that in mind, publication. This was written in 1920, the year before Saint-Saëns died, and it's very conservative. It's kind of it's in 4 movements. Saint-Saëns, interestingly enough, Saint-Saëns was kind of an enfant terrible when he was very young. Okay, he was kind of like called out for doing these kind of weird things in music as the romantic that he was. But here in his older age, he's in his 80s here, I think. He was very critical of Debussy and that whole school. And so he's writing a piece that really looks back to the past here. It's a nice work, though. I liked it. I thought the second movement, Allegro Animato, is charming. It's very short. It's got a very memorable melody. The lento movement, the slow movement, the third, starts out dramatically, but then a lot of the clarinet disappears, and there's this one really wonderful passage where Ogawa is playing these arpeggios, and they're really sensitively played and evenly, and the sensitivity of this music really comes out. I really enjoyed hearing that passage from her. I think she executed it properly, beautifully, and that for me made this whole performance really fantastic.
I like the lento because of the low register fullness. You don't hear the regular clarinet in that range a lot, but his sound was so expansive and full in that it almost getting into like a bass clarinet kind of tonality, and I was kind of sucked into that tone of it. Yeah, it was really nice.
that vibrating reed. Yeah, you kind of hear the reed vibrating at that lower tonality. I really like that about reed instruments when they get into their lower end. And that happens here. Okay, and so 4 movement work, and it's conservative, but it's very enjoyable. It's an odd work for him to be writing in 1920 when all this modernism was happening. It's really a romantic work, but he was. I don't know. He got old-fashioned in his old age. Something Fauré did not do, by the way. He's not on this album, though. Okay, next we have another conservatory piece, André Messager, Solo de Concours for clarinet and piano. And after that is a piece by Henri Rabaud, also called Solo de Concours. They were written like 2 years apart from each other. Again, these are fairly athletic works, highly melodic. I like them both, really. It's the Messager is just this really joyful work. It just made right away. It's just this happy kind of like upbeat rhythm and this happy melody that really put me in a good place. So that's the Messager, by the way. I liked it a lot.
That one shows his after the Saint-Saëns, that lento. Now he's going like the opposite. He's way up in the high register on this one.
This is the clarinetist you're talking about.
And it really shows he keeps that real centeredness, because clarinet can get ugly in the wrong embouchure person, and it can get on your nerves, but not for Collins. When he gets up high, he keeps that centered tonality. The timbre is still really beautiful. And so I thought, oh, wow, he keeps his, the qualities of his tone no matter where he is on the instrument. So I enjoyed that in this
Collins
piece.
is an old hand at this, but there are young clarinetists now today too who are just fantastic. I don't think we're ever going to hear a bad clarinet performance ever again on record, unless we go to hear like our friends play or something.
But
or even them, they're really fantastic. A lot of them are really good.
The thing, to me, the most essential thing with any jazz, classical, any style, or popular music too, do you like that person's sound? If it's their voice, do you like that? And then if it's an instrument, do you like the sound of their instrument? And then one sign of that sort of mastery is keeping that character that you have on the extremes of the instrument. It's also a skill to be able to change your tone when desired. But, normally you're not, especially in classical music, you're not going to want that change through a composition unless it's called for. And I just felt like when he gets up there, where the clarinet can become, sometimes a bit abrasive, but no, it's just like, it's still fluid and really beautiful. So,
yeah. Okay, so the Henri Rabaud solo de concours is the way this program is recorded seems to be modernist, conservative, So this one is kind of the opposite of the Messager, which it's just lightheartedly brilliant. But the Rabaud is again, it's he was one who really hated like Debussy's music, so he's in the older style of there's no sense of like musical coloring the tone in this piece. He's more about like line. The colors are really strong, but they're not like kind of soft or liquid or anything like that. Everything's bold. Okay, the outlines are clear. It's almost like a the Mozart rules with modern harmony. It's but Mozartian type lines. This is all about agility and strong breath control, as I guess all of these pieces are. It's a nice piece, though. I'm not saying just see what was conservative at the time isn't necessarily conservative for us. It's just old. Okay, so it kind of has this. I think we mentioned this in the interview with Daniel and Marek. We said that old things tend to get this kind of patina of age to them, and they all sound really good because the energies that were shaping them are all gone. So we're just kind of listening to it as a relic from the past now. And it may still talk to us, and hopefully it does, but we don't really notice. Like, we're not really into this whole like battle of which was going to be the dominant style or things like that, like they were. Okay. All right. Next comes Francis Poulenc ends our recording with two works. The first one is a sonata for two clarinets, and it's very short. It's in 3 movements, and it's 5 minutes long in its entirety. I really loved this. It was really kind of, but it was really different. It was strident, and it was playful, and it was like a little kid that wanted to annoy people, It kind of had that quality to it. But the playfulness made it really enjoyable to me. It kind of reminded me of this movie that I watch every year. It's by Jean Vigo. It's an old silent movie. It's called Zéro de Conduite, 0 for conduct. It's about a 30-minute silent movie about sort of a rebellion by the students in a boarding school in France in the 1920s. And we both teach at a school, Russ and I, so I like to watch this before the beginning of the new school year to get in the proper mood for doing my job. But this piece reminded me of the the lack of respect for authority that movie showed. Okay, I kind of enjoyed that a lot. It seems like he kind of wants to annoy people with this piece from that period. It's not going to be annoying to us. We're used to a lot kind of more strident music now. But it just sounds really fun. I've got my booklet in front of me, and Poulenc's biographer Henri Hell described this piece as leaving an acid taste that delicately annoys the ear.
Yeah,
it's kind of an interesting description.
I thought, when I listened to it, my first impression was there's one too many clarinets here.
I don't think so. I think you needed the other one.
But thinking like back as a trumpet player, when we come up, everyone comes through the Arban book, and part of the Arban book is the duets for trumpet, and so playing with another trumpet player and getting the the two same instruments to meld together, and so that's kind of interesting. But I haven't really thought about it for lots of other instruments. So hearing two clarinets, together is something I'm not really used to hearing. But I did like the composition. I mean, so not having any there's no piano or harmonic backup. It's just
there's no piano on this one.
So it's all the interplay. And as far as the composition goes, it's pretty interesting. And there's a lot of things to keep your attention here. As far as the when I'm listening to French music, as we've said before, and here, we're focusing on the timbre and the tone interplay. So here, I think the second movement is the one that's most enjoyable for me, because there's, more space and
I kind of like the undulating kind of like accompaniment in that one as well. I like that sound from the clarinet. There are certain sounds that I've talked about this with you before, but not on the podcast. There's certain sounds in the clarinet that I like the bubbling sound that it can do, like that kind of thing. Yeah.
The champagne.
And then there's that, the undulating sound that you hear like in the andante in this one too. Now, if listeners are afraid of the big bad strident music, don't worry. This is only 5 minutes long.
It's not that strident. No,
it's
kind
not.
of fun. I just don't know. I've never heard only two clarinets playing together. So,
right.
In that sense, okay, cool. Check it out, and it's interesting.
Yeah, the melodies, I can't really call them melodies. They're sort of angular, sort of like, it reminded me a little bit of because there's a clarinet in Stravinsky's Symphonies of Wind Instruments at the very beginning of that. The very first thing you hear. It reminded me of that sort of sound. And if people don't know that, they're not going to know this, but I don't know. Anyway, the recording ends with another piece by Poulenc, this one from near the end of his life. In fact, the year before he died, 1962. This is the only post-1920 work that we have on this recording. And this one's a bigger work. It's 13 minutes long, not very big, but for clarinet and piano. And it's more elegiac in tone. I really think it was written for... I can look this up. It was written for someone in memoriam. I think it was of Arthur Honegger, the Swiss composer.
Oh, Honegger, yeah.
Who had died. Okay, and Poulenc, it said, struggled with depression like later in his life, and this piece is a bit melancholy. It's really nice. It's lively.
The romanza. The melodies in that are really lovely.
Yeah, it's a good word for this piece. It's lovely, and it's a bit sad. Okay, yeah, the middle movement romanza is nice. The Allegro con fuoco at the end leaves us on a. It's exciting and has a nice, memorable melody to it too that really stuck in my ear. So I enjoyed that as well. All right, so total thumbs up for me for this recording. I love this. And the sound quality was fantastic. Also, it's warmly recorded. All the detail is very present. A must-hear, I would say. If you're interested in trying something new, give this a listen.
Yeah, give it a bet for clarinet. Nice recording of that instrument. You can't beat it.
Can't beat it. Michael Collins, one of the best out there. Okay, but he's getting competition now. There's some younger guys. All right. Number 2. Here we go. This is another beast recording. This is piano trios by Ravel and Saint-Saëns. We get Ravel's only piano trio in A minor, written in 1914. And Camille Saint-Saëns again. Okay, we have the I want to say it's the anniversary of his death. I want to try to come up with a word for that, but it's not really a thing. It's the 100th anniversary of his death. His second piano trio. Okay, now first of all, let me just the Ravel piano trio is really one of my favorite works, like, ever. I know it very well. I've attempted to play it. I never really was able to play this with other people, but I read through the piano score. And things like that. And so I know this fairly well. And the Saint-Saëns piano trio number 2, I only know his piano trios from one other recording I've heard, and that was by the Florestan Trio. And they recorded both of them. He wrote only 2 piano trios. So that one's a little less familiar, but no worries here. This ensemble, the Sitkovetsky Trio, and they are made up with the violinist Alexander Sitkovetsky, who's fairly well known. He appears as a concert soloist a lot, and he's recorded quite a few concertos. And his the rest of the trio is Isang Enders on cello and Wu Qian on piano. And I don't know either of them, but they're all fantastic. Now, okay, what can I say? The Ravel piano trio, this is one of the better recordings I've heard. I really enjoyed this a lot. Now, for me, I have this funny sort of thing with this piece. The best recording of this piece, the most beautifully recorded, was, I think, again, I mentioned the Florestan Trio 20 years ago, and I loved that recording except for one thing. I thought there was one big interpretative error in the Florestan Trio's performance of this piece from about 20 years ago now, on their fantastic album. There's a moment in the third movement, the Pasacaglia, where the piano drops out and you hear only the violin and cello playing this really mournful melody. And it's just this magical moment. Ravel is exceptionally good at producing these sorts of moments in his music. And it comes off really well here. But in that Florestan Trio album, the violinists and the cellists play it in this kind of like vibrato-less, in almost anemic way, and I thought they kind of lost the magic when they did that. And it kills me because I love that performance, except for that one part. So I'm always looking for a great performance that has that part played what I think is properly. And it's played properly here. All right, let me go through this a little bit. In general, this trio, Sid Kavetsky has a really beautiful sound. He's clearly the main person here. He's got a beautiful tone, and your ear is generally attracted to his playing. Not that he's playing louder or hogging the spotlight or anything like that. He's not, but he's got this really attractive tone that kind of makes you even pay attention to what he's doing. The other two are excellent too. The cellist is great, and the pianist Wu Qian is also good. When she plays quiet passages, she plays them very, very quietly. I had some volume issues at the beginning of this piece because it starts quietly with those chords in the first movement, and I had I was like, oh, this is recorded very quietly, and I turned it up, and within 2 minutes I was like, blowing my ears out. I had to turn the volume down. So I kind of feel like there's a little too wide a range of dynamics in this piece. I don't think she should be playing that quietly, but it's not a big problem. I mean, it's her playing is very good. She's a very neat player, and I'll come back to that in a moment. Okay, so the Modéré starts very quietly, but once all the instruments are in, you're hearing everything really well. Now, there are 3 instruments playing, often 2 are accompanying while one gets a solo, but you're always aware of what all of these musicians are doing. This recording is crystal clear. It's just fantastic. I really enjoyed hearing all the detail because I love this score so much too. So that was great. The Pantoum, the second movement, beautifully played. I would say it's a little cautious, but I'm going to say more about that in the fourth movement. The third movement, Pasacaglia, is my favorite. Pasacaglia, of course, is a repeating bass line. And we hear that bass line being handed off to various instruments as these instrumentals go over them. Very sensitively played. I really loved it. Some of the quieter passages were very, very quiet. Okay. Now, the fourth movement, the finale, in the wrong hands can be really chaotic because there are a lot of loud passages where the three musicians are playing different things. Now, in this case, the three of these players keep everything in order. Like they take a more, like I said, conservative approach. They don't really play at a very high volume. None of them is drowning each other out, and it's fantastic. You can hear all of the detail. This is a movement that can, in the wrong hands, can go off the rails. Okay, because of those passages where the piano is really kind of banging out these chords while everybody else is playing trills and things like that. That doesn't happen here. But to be honest, when I hear this piece, I really kind of like it to be on the edge of going off the rails. And I'm just not hearing that here. It's not a problem. It sounds great. I really enjoyed this performance a lot, but I'm just saying. Okay, so...
just saying.
I think the Florestan Trio on their old Hyperion recording hit that part beautifully. Okay, they played that really well. But this is going to be, I think, my go-to recording for a while. I really like this performance a lot of the Ravel Piano Trio. Okay, next is the Saint-Saëns Piano Trio number 2. Now, I was less familiar with this, so I'm really hearing this after, boy, it has to be like more than 10 years. I'm not hearing it, so it's like a new piece for me. This one is from the year 1892. So it's late Romantic period. He's still in his romantic style. He never really got out of it. This is a 5-movement work, and it's got some really beautiful stuff in it. The Allegro non troppo plays out like a sonata form. Enjoyable enough, but I think the real magic starts coming in the middle movements. The Allegretto, Andante con moto, which was really gorgeous. This was the middle of the whole work, and the Grazioso poco allegro, which has this really charming melody to it that kind of got my attention. I was a little surprised because I'm not really used to hearing this from Saint-Saëns. And the allegro at the end, it is a good send-off, but I was really kind of captivated by the middle 3 movements of this work. Again, very clear playing. I didn't find the piano to be very quiet in this particular recording. I thought the balance was really nice. Again, my ear keeps being drawn towards Sitkovetsky's violin. He has an exceptionally beautiful tone, and you keep wanting to hear that. He's really good as a soloist, but he doesn't steal the spotlight by any means. I enjoyed this whole recording. Really great.
Well, I'm a big fan of piano trio music. It's probably my favorite chamber music sort of format. And I like both of these pieces. I've listened to numerous recordings before. One of my favorite groups, ensembles, is called the Trio Wanderer. And they've recorded
I know them. Yeah.
Just about every piano trio that's out there very well. And I guess it was last year, not this year. It was right at the beginning of the Corona phase when the lockdowns and stay inside or else you die of the sniffles thing was going on. And that spring, I was doing a lot of daily work indoors, and when you do your listening of different kinds of music, there's certain moods or situations, circumstances you need for listening to various kinds of music. Right. And I like orchestral music a lot, but you can't listen to orchestral music while you're doing work. For one thing, I want to listen to it on my big system when I'm listening to the full orchestra. And so I've got to, go down and sort of lay back on the big leather sofa, and, I'm not going to get anything done. And, but, piano trio, I can listen to, in headphones or on my smaller system at my, my work desk sort of. And it's also, it's sort of contained dynamically so that I can do other things, but still appreciate the music. So I listen to a lot of Baroque music and piano trio music, or, sonatas and things while I'm doing other things. So that last year's spring, I really got into, just going all out every day. I wanted to find a new piano trio composition that I hadn't listened to. That's when I found the Trio Wanderer, and I liked that. And I had listened to both of these works there. And so I like these performances a lot, especially though I really, the Ravel here is my favorite just because of the...
It's beautifully recorded, too.
Yeah,
God.
the way the attention to in the composition, but also in the performance of the contrasting timbres, the violin and the cello, you get those different string personalities that are, alternated in the voices here. And then in the performance, really great dynamics that also the recording quality brings out.
Right.
And a lot of passionate phrasing there too. So I thought this is a really excellent Ravel performance and recording. Saint-Saëns, I like this one too. It's really robust playing in the sound. The piano is really quite dominant in here, I feel. And
Saint-Saëns himself was a pianist. I guess I would follow.
The balance is a little bit different in the writing compared to the Ravel. I like this piece too. It's a really good recording, but I would get this one for the Ravel because I felt it's really impassioned and it feels somehow new and fresh. Even if you know this,
I would agree with that.
To that, it really came alive for me, and the tonality of the strings. I would. The violin is on the edge, and then when the cello comes in and it sort of mellows that out, and the balance of the timbres is really nice. I enjoyed this interpretation of it a lot.
Yeah, I just want to say anything I said about the Ravel, I was really like nitpicking, but because overall this is a really good performance. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it's very. They're not going through the motions here at all. This is really, feeling. This music, it's almost like you get a feeling like this the first time they're playing through it or something. It's impassioned. So
the Saint-Saëns work. I just want to say, I think for me personally, it's going to take more listening. I thought it was a really good work, but it's very long. Well, actually, it's not. It's about the same length as the Ravel, but it's in 5 movements, and it's the first movement is a straight sonata. So if you just kind of the forms are all familiar to me, so sometimes when that happens, I'm listening to the form and not really to the detail, like what's happening in the music. Whereas in modernist music, I'm always listening to the actual kind of content.
Right.
It's so I think this is going to pay off after a few more listens. I got to get more familiar with this work because I did like it a lot, and it's a beautiful recording. It's really an ideal performance to hear it on. So far we're batting 1,000 here, as we would say in baseball. I think
holy cow!
Got some holy cow! The great Phil Rizzuto.
I never met him, but I met his daughter once. Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Oh wow! What was she like? Did she say "holy cow" too? Or?
No, she didn't. No, she didn't say much. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What was the situation that you met her?
That was a place I was working when I was in university, and she came in and she brought down the name Rizzuto, and of course, probably everyone asks, "Oh, are you related to?" Yeah, actually, that's my dad.
The commentator for the New York Yankees back in the day when we were showing our age now. Yeah,
for you New Yorkers.
Yeah. He was also their second baseman, I think, back in the 1950s,
actually,
long before we were born.
And along with that baseball image, I played a gig last night, and the first one in a while, but unfortunately it was in a place where also there was a simulcast of the Olympic baseball final where the Japanese trounced the Americans. So
good for them. It's their first ever gold medal in baseball, and they certainly deserve it.
Holy cow, I was thinking at that time. But
there was a newspaper article about... if anybody knows baseball out there, Sadaharu Oh. If you're our age, you remember Sadaharu Oh, the home run king in Japanese baseball, and really the all-time home run king, except that Americans don't like to kind of admit that because they say he was playing in Japan. But he had 828 home runs in his career. And anyway, he was in the news because he's still around. He's still alive. And he was very happy about seeing Japan win a gold medal. He thought that was a big achievement. So. But
baseball fans don't listen to music very well. I had like all these, cool Lydian scales in this one solo that I thought this is really, people should be impressed by this. But
if only I was there.
Some guy like scratching himself was more interesting, So anyway,
they always do that. They scratch themselves, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. What's that all about?
I wasn't scratching. Both my hands were playing music, but oh well.
Yeah. Okay. Good for you. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Anyway, the last of the classical choices is by the 20th century French composer Henri Dutilleux. Dutilleux, Dutilleux. You can look it up on our playlist. Now he was he's sort of an interesting character. His music is very unique in that he went his own way at a time when Pierre Boulez was dominating French musical culture and demanding that everybody write in the Schoenbergian 12-tone dodecaphonic serial style. And Dutilleux didn't do that, so of course he didn't really get played much. But people championed his music, and he, from around 1950 on, he didn't write very many pieces, but they're all very carefully orchestrated and detailed, and every one of them is just this jewel. Okay. Now, before 1950, he was sort of like Debussy, writing works like Clair de Lune. He was writing sort of more ordinary music, and we're getting some early works by him on this album, although Le Loup was written with the ballet, Le Loup, the Wolf. This is the name of this album, is Le Loup. It's a 30-minute ballet. It means the wolf in French. Ballet in 1 act and 3 tableaux. Okay. And this is the first time I've ever heard this work. And it's 1953, so this is after his first symphony. This is really when he started realizing his mature style. Although this particular work doesn't sound to me like it's in his mature style. It sort of sounds more like it's functional for the ballet. It doesn't really have his... Well, I can't really say it has his fingerprints all over it. It doesn't really sound like it's kind of... Because his work is very structural, and here I think he's writing for the dancers. This is this ballet. It's kind of an interesting scenario. It's the story of the ballet that he's setting here is a man and a woman are getting married, and the man, while their wedding procession is going through the woods, the man casts his eye on a gypsy girl and falls in love with her, and decides he's going to run off with her.
She was a gypsy woman.
Yeah. Just if you don't understand that, you just got to listen to that song.
Listen to that song,
yeah. Yeah, you'll understand why he did that. And I've read the Hunchback of Notre Dame, the Notre Dame de Paris, the Victor Hugo book, and Esmeralda is presented as, she's a gypsy woman too. She's presented as quite an alluring figure herself. Yes. All the men are kind of like running after her, and one of them doesn't like her at all, the priest. But anyway, that figures. Anyway, the man runs off with the woman and pretends that he's been transformed into a wolf. So he leaves the wolf to marry his bride, and which she does, I guess. And they go to the room to get it on, but then the villagers kind of come in, and the huntsman explains what happened, and I guess the bridegroom has second thoughts. And is going to, he admits that that the wolf is a real wolf and that he wasn't transformed into a wolf. She thinks he was transformed into a wolf, so she marries him anyway. So Beauty and the Beast kind of thing. So anyway, she's a little mad about that, and she decides, I'm going to stay with the wolf. So the third act comes up, and they get their little dance thing, but then the hunters come, and they kill the wolf, and she dies defending the wolf. Unhappy ending. But musically, this ballet doesn't sound terribly unhappy. It's got a lot of it kind of sounds sort of through composed, sort of like Debussy's ballet Jeu, which is about like a tennis match, and it's got a lot of kind of standard dance elements in it, like polkas and waltzes and that sort of thing. It's also got a lot of circus music as well too. The wolf can apparently do magic tricks, like he's doing magic tricks at the beginning of the. I guess the wolf has these human qualities. I guess. I guess I'd have to see the ballet to see how they actually staged this to really understand what's going on. Anyway, we're in a fairy tale land here. Okay, so anyway, I should mention before I give my verdict on this that this recording is by the Sinfonia of London, conducted by John Wilson. It's on the Chandos label. Now, this ensemble has given us some pretty amazing recordings in the last few years, not least of which, the best of which, is a recording of the Respighi works, the Pines of Rome, Fountains of Rome, and Roman festivals, which I just love. Okay, that's also on an SACD. Yeah, they also did one about French orchestra works. There's an English string music one, and then there's one of Korngold's, Eric Wolfgang Korngold's Symphony in F sharp major, I think it is, or F sharp minor. I don't remember. Anyway, so this is one of their recordings. And as is always the case with them, it's in spectacular sound. This sounds great. And on Super Audio CD, too, the separation is just really clean and just beautiful. It's a pleasure to listen to. All right, musically, this ballet, I didn't think it was terribly memorable. It was good. But it didn't really stick in my head. I think this is a work that would benefit from you seeing the dancers as well as hearing the music. And I think Dutilleux thought the same thing. He didn't allow orchestras to perform this work without the ballet performance until the end of his life. He sort of signed off on that. It's an early work, and I think it was more functional than in his very sort of rarefied style. It's very good. It sounds great, but it's a little standard. It's not really what I expect from him. So I thought it was good. It's worth hearing.
I thought it's big for a ballet. If when I listened to it, if I didn't know it was a ballet, I wouldn't have guessed because I thought, I don't know if it's just this ensemble or the recording. I think it would have
been hard to follow if you didn't know it was a ballet, though.
It's like, this is big. The orchestration is large. It doesn't sound like, I'm just...
It's a pretty big orchestra.
I couldn't imagine someone, a ballerina coming out on tippy toes. There's something bigger happening. So I thought it's kind of majestic, even cinematic in some places. But what I liked about it, because this was first listen for me, and so I haven't really gotten used to where it's going and the flow of it. But I did enjoy the contrasting themes. So I could see, once I, listened to it and I saw how the changes are going through, I can see how it's related to, sort of different dances and things like that. But
right.
Those sort of changes of themes and tempos kept it really interesting from a composition point for me. So, yeah.
Yeah, I loved the performance and the recording, and I think this will repay repeated listenings, which I think I'm going to have to do. Okay, this is the first time I've ever heard this, like I said, and I liked it, but it didn't stick. And it may take time. This happens to me sometimes. There is music that I think of the music of Olivier Messiaen. I remember when I first heard his music, I didn't really think anything of it. But over years, I started to really like it. It took a long time, but it finally sunk in, and now I just really love it because I kind of get it now. And this, maybe this work will be something like that. Dutilleux's music, his mature music, is not easy. It's not difficult on the ear, but it's also a bit demanding intellectually to kind of follow, so this isn't a work like that, though. This is an easier work to follow. The music changes, the rhythms change. It's sort of as the scenario changes, I think. So it's sort of easier to listen to. All right, the remaining three works on this recording are orchestrations of three works for solo instrument and piano. The first one is a sonatine for flute and originally for piano, but here it's orchestrated. The orchestrator, by the way, is Kenneth Hesketh, who's around our age. And he orchestrated all three of these. Now, the sonatine for flute and piano is probably Dutilleux's most performed and most famous work, much to Dutilleux's chagrin, because he felt like his later works were more, sort of like Debussy. Like, everybody knows Clair de Lune, but that's not really representative of who he was, especially in his after he composed Prélude de l'après-midi d'enfant, and he started doing all those fantastic orchestral works like La Mer and then Nocturnes and the piano preludes and things like that. Anyway, Dutilleux was pretty famous for this work. It's not really in his mature style, but it's very appealing. It's a very athletic work for the flute. I'm so used to hearing this in the flute and piano version. A lot of people have recorded it, that the orchestration kind of took me aback a bit. I had to kind of adjust a bit to hear this. It's because, with the piano, you hear the hammering, but here it's like, it's a little softer. The orchestrator went for a kind of a more pastel sort of approach, really, in all three of these. these works. I don't know that served the music well, but it certainly made it sound bigger. And the flute is definitely the main attraction here without the piano. So there was that. Let me just go on here. The Sonata for oboe is from 1947, also not in his mature style. It was written a little after the sonatine. This is in 3 movements, but nevertheless, it's about the same length as the sonatine. It's just in these 3 contrasting movements. Pretty straightforward. Again, the orchestration is a little odd for me. And the Sarabande et Cortège is a 2-movement work from 1942. It's very early. The Sarabande, an old dance style. I really like the melody he came up with for this one. And the Cortège, which is a march, kind of starts out like that, and then rather wildly, I thought. I thought this is a pretty appealing work. Actually, I like this one the best of the 3. Now, I actually do like the flute sonatine a lot, but I prefer it in its flute and piano version. This is very richly recorded, beautiful sound all the way through. I'm going to want to get used to some of these newly orchestrated works, because I do love this recording, and I think it's going to be worth getting to know these a little better. So all in all, I would say this is appealing. It didn't really strike me the first time I heard it, but I think it's going to be something that will repay repeated listening.
Yeah, I enjoyed this. I didn't know any of these compositions or anything.
You got to hear the chamber versions.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that.
Yeah.
But, Adam Walker on flute, his technique and sound is always great, yeah.
I wanted to mention him because he was featured on our French Me Baby 1 episode.
Yeah.
I forgot he's on this as well, yeah.
The second Adam here. But, he always cuts through it. I mean, his technique and passion in the flute lines is great here. Yeah, so I like this piece. It's mysterious, energetic, and playful. Right. The oboe sonata, I found this one kind of brooding. And from what I like to hear from the oboe, it didn't really give me a lot of satisfaction. I listened to it and I thought, I was kind of indifferent to it, but I really did enjoy the Sarabande because of the bassoon.
Yeah, me too.
And especially the first movement. You rarely do you hear a bassoon anyway in any length at any length, and here it's really a beautiful bassoon. And so the first movement, especially, the timbres are nice, and the bassoon just sounds really, really great. It's got to be.
I should have mentioned the bassoon is the solo instrument in this work. I didn't mention it's not in the title. So okay.
So I really like that. The second movement is also nice. It's a bit more playful, but the first movement to really hear like the bassoon can really sound nice, not just some sort of special effect in a kind of a double reed kind of a punctuation thing. Yeah, it's really a nice spotlight. If you're a bassoon player, you definitely want to have this piece in your repertoire, and I liked it a lot. So
it was really enjoyable to listen to. I liked it too. So I liked anyway, John Wilson. I'll be following everything this ensemble does. I think they're just fantastic. And these are great. These have all been great recordings. By the way, if listeners want to do some extra listening, John Wilson and the Sinfonia of London, their Rapsodie recording from 2020, I believe it came out last year, is absolutely fantastic. If you are blessed, as I am, with surround sound, this is a Super Audio CD, there's a magical, usually like when you hear like a surround sound recording in classical, the rear speakers are ambient, and the front ones are just kind of the orchestra, and they're just spread out a little more, because you have the center channel as well. But in this particular recording, there's the second movement of the Feste Romane, the Roman festivals, depicts a pilgrimage to Rome by Christian pilgrims. And there's a moment where they first see the church that they're making the pilgrimage to through the trees, and it's to the left of where they're walking. And I know this because the church bells ring out in this at one moment, and it's in the left rear channel and the front left channel. And it's just this magical surround effect. I was really impressed by this. I really love hearing it. So that was like a nice use of surround sound there. They kind of painted the image that Rapsodie was trying to put across. I wonder if they actually do that in the performances too. They have the bells in the back of the auditorium.
That'd be cool.
I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, there you go. That's it for classical this week. And on to jazz. Let's go.
Well,
are we Frenching it up?
Well, as I said, I'm a bit in a quagmire of things with jazz, because there's a lot of things I know are coming out. I have this huge list of things, but they're not available yet. They're coming out in August, late August, early September. There's teaser tracks out there. And I thought, well, we were going to do a French theme. And there were a couple of French things that I had noticed, but I wasn't necessarily going to listen to right away or anything. But then I said, okay, French, here's French 1, French 2. And then another thing, well, I'll talk about that when we get to it, just had sort of popped out a little bit late on the schedule just because of the way things are going in the music business. So I sort of put a couple things together that I thought would fit with the French theme, with two French pianists who sort of have a foot in both worlds of classical music and jazz music. So I think it fits the French theme, and it sort of straddles, not really a mainstream. Listeners who have listened to most of our things have figured out, probably I'm sort of a mainstream jazz aficionado. I mainly stick with sort of post bop and modern jazz things that have a foot in the tradition, sort of stay out of electronic influenced jazz, any of the new trends that sort of have recitations and things that I sort of find trendy and annoying. And I'm always looking for, new upcoming players who might not get noticed. And also, I wish there were more things coming out of America, the birthplace of jazz, but there's seems new releases coming out of Europe and here and there, which I find interesting. And we've featured some French things, especially on the Jazz and People label. We had the Belmondo brothers, and we had
that was a fantastic release.
That was a great release.
Favorite
and we
jazz
had
records of the year, actually.
The French pianist we had a couple of weeks ago too, and
we had Brian Charette on the organ too. Don't forget.
We've had organ. Yeah, but he's a New York based guy, I think so.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so I thought here I'd known about these two albums, but I thought okay, this is a good chance here. So. We've got two sort of French jazz pianists who are also, involved in the classical world. So the first one is called, and Mike's going to help me out on these titles because my French pronunciation is not
French.
good. So.
I haven't spoken French in 10 years now, but
this is Guiliaume de Chassy.
French, but
is that it?
Which one are we talking about first?
De Chassy.
De Chassy. Let me see this guy's name. Oh, Guillaume de Chassy. Yeah,
Guillaume de Chassy.
I guess it would be Chassy.
Chassy. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is the
Guillaume de Chassy.
Scènes d'intérieur.
Scènes d'intérieur. Oui.
Yeah. So, interior scenes, and so he's a pianist that has, as I say, equally. A foot in the classical world, and
I got that from him too, and I have something to say about that. But anyway, we'll get to that later.
He's on a well-known pianist on the French creative music scene. He has a colorful, as French music should be, but kind of understated style, and he pays particular attention to the sound and timbre, but he's
as French musicians will.
Yeah. And he's been involved with some American and European big jazz names like Paul Motion, Mark Murphy, Enrico Rava, Paolo Fresu, those two great Italian trumpeters, and many others. And but he's also played a lot with well-known classical musicians. And so this album is sort of another product of the Corona period that we've lived through. And so from his notes on this album, from 2020 to 21. It says, it is during the strange period which connects the springs of 2020 and 2021 that unexpected music appeared from me. They came at the right time to give me news. It was enough to put them in shape by letting myself be crossed by the images they aroused. Thus was born these interior scenes, name of the album. I confess that I play them above all for myself, but having left the door open. So as all of us around the world have been through various kind of lockdowns and isolation, particularly, working musicians unable to perform in front of crowds. In one way, they had a chance to focus on composing new things, but, it's sort of an isolationist experience. And so that's the sort of idea, I think, that this album comes out. And overall, I would say that it's, very introspective ideas that he's, and they're sort of, how should I say, very personal, but much more, to me, classically oriented than jazzy in the case of this recording. And they tend to be very French, I find, and impressionistic.
I would say that too. I agree.
But I enjoyed them for what they were. So let's go through them. The first one, how do you help me out here, Mike?
Printemps. Means spring.
Which means spring. Yeah. And we've got a nice, all of these are very laid back rubato in general, at least at the start. We've got some pretty modal chords, and the melody is decorated with these sort of intervallic figures that they kind of evoke a rainy spring afternoon. And as he goes through these, he brings in some trills in the figures, and you'll get a sense right away from his sensitive touch. It's a very nice touch on the keyboard. And then he's got some descending interval lines that sort of, they make you think of water coming down like on a spring day. So it starts off with this kind of
maybe a nice spring rain.
Yeah, spring rainy piece. It's very pretty.
There's a piece by Debussy called Jardin sous la pluie, Gardens in the Rain. And it kind of has that sort of like, raining in the springtime. It's a light rain sort of
that's right.
feeling on the piano. So I think it's similar to that in a way.
Number 2 is The Man Who Walks in French.
L'homme qui marche.
L'homme qui marche.
Marche, homme, marche.
Marche. And that marching thing is set off with the repeated bass notes that he starts off and gets you the motion of this tune. There's a low melody.
That walking theme.
Yeah. And there's a low melody
walking,
and chords that are built over kind of pulsing bass tones. And then the tempo varies in this, so it creates this kind of sense of urgency. And there's some kind of impactful chords for intensity. But then midway through, things get a bit quieter, and you get some really impressionistic scales that are put in here. There's a really French touch that he puts in very classically in here. And then those move on more to the middle register where a new theme develops. And then we get some lower quiet chords and more bass notes that end softly. So this is a really impressionistic influence here. Then we have the title track here, the interior scenes.
Scènes d'intérieur.
Scènes d'intérieur for number 3. This starts with a kind of short rubato piece. It's got a gentle chord progression that he repeats, and there's subtle embellishments that he works on each time through, and to a different ending. Maybe from what I got, if we think of this as an impressionistic kind of thing, it's sort of describing a room where one spends a lot of time, maybe his practice room or studio, where he's in the lockdown, and he's sort of moving around the sort of landscape of the room and describing things. So that the theme comes back and it's embellished, but there's not a lot of difference. It's very subtle. But that's sort of the impression I got from the piece. Yeah.
I thought this was my favorite one on the album, actually.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was kind of, it had a lot of, it had a bit of depth to it, I thought.
Yeah.
There's something like that you had to sort of reach for.
Right.
listening to it.
And 4, The Question of Love.
The Question of Love, La Question Amoureuse.
Yeah. This one I thought was really appealing. It starts with kind of fast rolling and changing chords that create a dreamy atmosphere. There's some dissonance here too that creates tension, but then it's contrasted with resolutions that give you some relief. And the focus moves to the right hand, and then there's kind of an elevated passion that comes through there and comes back to the bass. It gets heavier, some waves of motion, but it cools down a bit on a single repeated note. Then he brings in some chiming notes up higher, and then it goes down low again. And so I felt like this is sort of the moving emotions of love being shown around the keyboard, sort of like the questions of passion and commitment or something in love. And then it sort of going back and forth, the pulling emotions of love. And only at the end, the tempo slows down a bit to the final notes. So I thought it's a nice piece of contrast here. Number 5, Back to Paris. Retour en Paris.
En Paris, return to En Paris. I don't know what En Paris is, though.
I'm not sure, yeah. But, yeah, this is a really lovely, slow melody that has interesting harmonization. And here he really gets to show off, Chassy shows off his sense of touch and articulation. Lots of sense of space. There's no hurriedness to go through here. It's all about the melody and touch. So a sparse piece that's just nicely presented. After that, we've got April 19th.
Yeah, 19 avril.
Yeah. This one, relaxed chord sequences come in, and it creates a sense of motion, but then it resets. And after some rounds of that sequence, there's an alternating bass figure of notes that creates kind of a tension, and it builds with some low running lines, and then there's syncopation and dynamics. That transforms into a section of really chiming chords over the low bass notes. And the things kind of mellow out before he restates the original chord sequences to the end. I don't know the significance of the April 19th, but
it might just be the day he wrote the piece.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Just an idea
kind
for
of a jazz thing to do. Just date the,
Yeah. 7 is no answer. Sans réponse.
Yeah, no answer.
No answer.
Sans réponse.
It's a melancholy melody. Some interesting harmonies here. There's an alternating figure between the bass notes that gives it kind of motion between the melodic phrases. And he puts a pause in after that, and there's some really cascading high-tone figures that increase in tempo and intensity. And then they come back and connect to the original theme. And then the last piece,
can I say this?
Yes,
I love saying this. Jamais le crépuscule.
Crépuscule, it's a nice one.
Yeah. Sounds good. It's a nice sounding word.
Never
Jamais,
the twilight.
Never the twilight.
And
or the sunset. Whatever.
Yeah, this one has really intriguing melody, and I like the balance of sort of lifting themes and sadness. So this one pulls you in 2 different ways. The harmonization is sparse. In the middle, there's a contrasting section with more motion that's he provides with kind of left-hand rolling figures, and that gets developed into the final section that continues the motion on. So, yeah, this is really, it's kind of like a recording of personal sketches, I felt. Maybe they're not completely developed, but I, thinking of, musicians in the last 2 years not maybe having ability to interact with others or, outlets for the music, to share something personal like this, I kind of appreciated it. And I thought that it was interesting music. It's delicate, it's introspective, and it's impressionistic in that sort of French way of suggesting lots of things that may not be fully developed, but his playing, has a nice sense of touch and balance that allows him to present these ideas, and they show his articulation and touch really well. It's a very subtle recording. It's really nice for like a rainy afternoon or something, and you get a feeling of, you're sort of sitting in, looking at, someone who might be playing alone in a room and developing his ideas. And in that sense, I thought it was enjoyable and, kind of personal sort of look into a piano player's approach to ideas that he's developing.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. But for me, though, this recording was a little too close to the classical side.
Yeah.
For me, I would have preferred it to be more jazzy, because what winds up for me, what happens is when I was hearing just the opening piece Printemps, and as it went on, I sort of thought, oh, this is something like Debussy in here, or these chords reminded me of Messiaen's music. But then what Debussy and Messiaen would have done with those chords was a lot sort of freer than what this pianist de Chassy does with it. So he could have gotten out of that, I felt like, by kind of making the music more jazzy, maybe using some jazz rhythms or sort of, something else. He really adheres a lot to the form of all these pieces. It feels like the form is very important to him. So I kind of I kind of wanted it to be freer, I thought, or just to go in another direction. It's probably not a good criticism to make, because obviously this is the way he wants this music to sound. But I have a funny thing with these kind of like classical jazz hybrids. I generally like it. Well, actually, I'll get into that more with the next album, because I know what you're going to talk about. But yeah, so anyway, I would have liked this if it was a little more jazzy, because I felt like his ideas were a little more conservative than Debussy's and Messiaen's were, and I would have liked to have heard him like stretch out more. It's nice, though. It's enjoyable. I like it.
That's why I initially passed on these when they first came out. I listened to a couple tracks and I thought, this isn't jazzy enough for what I normally do. So I tried to approach them in a new
and
concept.
not only that, but like a classical work in this style would have been more harmonically interesting to me, because you have time to kind of write it all out and think it all out, and you kind of come up with some interesting sounds.
When you get these hybrid things, there's a lot of danger involved in them, and that generally you face the alienation of both groups of jazz fans and classical fans.
Yeah, that's true.
When you get something that's neither nor, and I think it's hard to get some. And I generally don't like them, so I have to be in the right mood. But
I'm like that. I'm with you. I'm the same way. I generally don't like jazz hybrids, classical hybrids, but
as we said, the kiss of death is jazz sweet.
The jazz suite.
Yeah,
well,
only Ellington can pull that off. Yeah.
I'll accept it from Ellington, but that's about it.
That's about it. Yeah.
Even like Mingus did a jazz suite. I didn't like that either. I was kind of like, I don't know. Yeah, but well.
But anyway, I'm taking this for what it is.
But for me, though, when you have these classical jazz hybrids, when people try to jazz up classical music, it depends who it is. Like, I remember the Jacques Lussier trio doing all these Bach recordings. I really liked those. I thought they were really creative. They were fantastic. They were kind of imaginative.
Right.
And I think the recording, I assume you're going to talk about Paul Lay next.
Yeah,
right?
we're going to go to this next.
I think. Well, I'll withhold comment for now, but I have something good to say about this, even though I think it's I approach this kind of music with trepidation.
This kind of thing, I think. Let's see, what am I thinking of? Manhattan Jazz Quintet has done like various arrangements of classical things, and then other jazz musicians have sort of done. There's a I'm trying to think. It's one of my favorite recordings. Ike Quebec. Who
he's good. Yeah, he's also good at this too.
And he brings in a lot of classical themes, but he does them in a more jazzy style. So it's really just the classical melody that he's using. Yeah,
that he's just really it's in a completely jazz idiom, and it's great because it's familiar from classical music, but you're hearing it in this jazz rhythm. It's fantastic. I really like when
those usually work really well. But when you get these things that are more, in the middle of in a sort of a limbo that they sort of make you make harder decisions. So now, I mean, I think with the Chassy, he's obviously very influenced by French classical music, and so that in this recording, it's much more in that direction than it is in jazz. But now we move on to this one, next one, called Full Solo by Paul Lay, the Sun Gazebo record label. And I should mention that the Chassy is NoMadMusic label. I didn't mention that, but
it's another small label, huh?
Yeah, Paul Lay Gazebo. So Full Solo, and so he's another French pianist that has sort of one foot in both worlds of classical and jazz, and he was actually requested by some I'm not sure, a journalist or something, René Martin, to do something of this nature using Beethoven's works, and so.
Last year, I remember, was Beethoven's it was like the 250th anniversary of his birth. So it was it was supposed to be this big Beethoven year, but then the coronavirus came and ruined all that. But we still got the recordings though. So, yeah. So, he approached this project, to, examine Beethoven's works. And then, he wanted to create something, jazz-like and creative on there, and he's written about this, that he's struck by the power of the form of Beethoven's music, and so it's sort of difficult for him to get the right balance, so sort of a distance between the perfection of the pieces and creating some new space of improvisation. Beethoven's music is structurally solid, I have to say that.
And so what he said is that he wanted to develop new forms on the piano from Beethoven's essentials, while retaining the composer's spirit, the rhythm and the melodies, and then other characteristics. And then while in this project, he traveled to Vienna for a stay. And then, this city where Beethoven lived for a long time, he composed some original pieces that are interspersed in here, just sort of based on something that he encountered, a mood or a feeling while he was walking through Vienna. And so those are the, sort of alterations in the program here. And so you'll get familiar pieces of Beethoven interspersed with these original works. And, so that's what he's doing here. So we'll go through this and then see if he's successful from our standpoint. So let's see. The first track is Beethoven. Is it Bagatelle?
Bagatelle.
Yeah, Bagatelle.
It's a without opus Bagatelle. I don't really know this one.
Right. And so this one is starts with an interesting rhythmic figure interplay, but he gets some kind of bluesy phrases that he can insert into here, and he comes up with a left-hand bass melody that he shifts over to the right hand. It feels like he's swinging with the right hand, but not too much, because the left hand has to stay with this kind of even beat here. And then he makes some more variations, and he alternates a lot between both hands, which is kind of interesting. And then at the ending, he alternates between some really heavy kind of Beethoven cadences and then jazzy. So it's kind of fun, the switch off in this. He's showing that he's going to be playful with what he's approaching here.
Yeah, I want to mention, first of all, bagatelle, the meaning is like a light piece, or just like a throwaway piece. A bagatelle, something easy, that he just kind of thought of, and when you label a piece of bagatelle, you're telling the audience that it's not important. That's just something you wanted to just kind of write down that you thought was amusing. He actually labels this without Opus 52, so you can actually go back to the actual Beethoven Bagatelle. Right. You can listen on YouTube, just type.
Yeah, that's what I did. I compared the original ones. Yeah,
you can hear the original work. I don't really know the Beethoven Bagatelles very well. He wrote a lot of them towards the end of his life when he was doing these deeply spiritual works, like the string quartets and the Ninth Symphony, and then he wrote like a series of piano bagatelles, I guess to just kind of unwind.
So that's how they're described. Like this one has the Beethoven opus number and the title, and then it says arranged for jazz piano. Right. And then we get the alternating piece, his original composition. They're all called In Vienna with a subtitle. And so the first one is called Portrait. And this starts as a pretty jazz ballad. It's got some lush chords. It gets some more motion and searching lines with some left-hand counterpoint figures. It gets a bit more jazzy, and then his hands really separate into high and low ranges for a different ending. There's a lot going on here. Yeah, interesting little original piece excursion to start out the original pieces. Number 3. Here we've got, oh boy, yeah, Symphony Number 9, fourth movement, the Presto hymn, arranged for jazz piano.
All right, the Ode to Joy, the famous Ode to Joy.
But it kind of starts out with an ode to Vince Guaraldi. I felt it sort of starts out, and he chimes out the
not a bad way to start it.
No, yeah, it starts the familiar melodies in the left hand. And then I think, let's see. No, I think it's in the right hand. It's kind of, then it answers with chiming in the left hand in the bass. There's some new jazzy transition chords that he gets in here between the sections, always keeping this kind of funky rhythm. When it modulates, as it does in the original piece, he adds some dense harmonization. It's kind of impressive. But then he gets it funky again. And then there's a more kind of playful jazz section that starts in the middle, and he works into some bluesy chords, some right-hand runs, and he has this kind of frantic hand chasing going on that sort of disrupts the structure of the piece. Then he brings back the funky kind of thing, and then the dense modulation section comes in again, and he adds some other famous Beethoven intervals from another piece that you'll recognize there. Then he restates the theme, and then he gets back to kind of a chasing ending. So this piece is really a reconstructed work of one of Beethoven's most famous melodies.
Yeah, no, I was saying, when I was saying, oh boy, what I was implying was that, how many times do we have to hear this super famous melody?
Right.
I want to say something about it. Now, we have a big problem here because Russ and I live in Japan, and the Ninth Symphony by Beethoven gets played to
New
death
Year's Eve,
for New Year's, from around December 15th to the end of the year. It gets played several times. It's been said that the Ninth Symphony should be an event, like, when an orchestra plays that. And yet these poor orchestras here play it like 14 times, within like 15 days, with amateur choirs who are, who have been practicing all year to sing this.
Yeah.
It's not an easy piece to play, and it's really hard on the musicians, Yeah. And I think by the 14th, 13th performance, you're already you're kind of going through the motions. You're not really putting it across anymore. Although they're professional musicians, so maybe they are. I don't know. But anyway, so I'm just kind of, I want to talk about, I want to say, I remember Alan Watts, the, sort of, he was a bit of a
Eastern philosophy guy.
He's a British guy, but he kind of took on, from the 1960s, he became sort of this Eastern philosophy guru.
Zen guru.
And he, in one of his books, he said something to the effect of, he was talking about the Bible, and he said there's a lot of wisdom in the Bible. It might be a good idea to put it away for 10 years and not read it and then go back to it. There's a lot of wisdom. Now, sacrilegious as this may sound, there's a lot of wisdom in that comment. I actually did this with, like, the Beatles, for example. I just knew every Beatles song by heart. I was saying to myself, I don't really need to hear the Beatles anymore. And for a long time, in my 30s, 40s, I just didn't listen to any Beatles songs. And then finally, when they finally remastered them all, I wanted to hear them again. And now I'm really enjoying them again because I had been away from them for so long. I think that's true of the Ninth Symphony as well. Like a little time away from it, Yeah. I think somebody had said this should be banned from being performed for about 3 years, and then everybody will love it again 4 years from now because we just hear it too much. I think there's something to be said about being away from a really famous piece of music for a while. You can really start to love it again. All right, so there you go.
And you could actually hear Paul McCartney's bass lines on the remastered versions.
Yeah, that's also very cool because he's got some pretty awesome bass lines.
Yeah.
He's a very melodic bass player.
I never heard those in my 1977 Dodge Dart AM radio speakers. Yeah, they were all mixed out.
Yeah,
they were mixed out because you couldn't play bass. Too bad.
Right. I remember
four.
In college. I remember when I was in college because I played the bass in rock bands in college, punk bands.
Yeah.
And in order to pick out the bass line, I remember because we had LP records and the bass wasn't mixed very high.
No.
So I remember being in my roommate's room and playing my stereo in my room and listening to it through the wall so that I could pick out the bass line.
Yep. We only got the kind of treble articulation coming through. Yeah.
Right.
None of those.
Well, now with CD, we can hear the bass lines again, which is really nice. Yeah.
They don't have that high pass filter cutting out all the bass. Number 4 is the next original composition in Vienna Blues. This one has
I like this one.
Yeah, dense, dreamy chords. They move into some more bluesy sounds. He gets a bounce going and a line in the left hand, and then he adds some more bluesy lines in the right. So this is getting into more jazzy territory. Some nice chord twists and change-ups of the rhythm. He's got some chimey chords and then some stormy bass tones, and it resets things about 3/4 of the way through to return to the original theme. And he takes it out with a nice bluesy ending. Yeah, so somehow he found the blues in Vienna.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
You wouldn't think the blues would be in Vienna, but there they were.
But there they were.
By the way, I want to ask you, what's your favorite Beatles song while we're on the topic?
Oh wow.
I know what mine is right away. I have a favorite Beatles song. You have to think about it.
A Day in the Life, maybe?
Mine is Drive My Car.
Oh, you like that one?
It's. I think that's like a.
Well, that's what album? That's what?
That's Rubber Soul.
Rubber Soul. I think Rubber Soul is the best orchestration. You know, I like the horns and things on that album. Yeah. That was a turning point for me.
Has my favorite Beatles song ever, Drive My Car. The two Beatles songs I dislike the most, Michelle and Girl.
Oh, yeah,
I don't like those two.
Oh, okay.
I don't like Michelle. Michelle is actually, it's a good composition because he's talking to this French girl and he doesn't speak French, so he's kind of like one syllable gets one note and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's really annoying for me to listen to. I don't really like it. And in Girl, I don't like the way John Lennon, sucks in his teeth like he works for the Japanese government
office.
With the people at the airport, the customs officials. Oh, you can't bring this in. They go, when something is wrong, they don't want to tell you it's wrong, so they just suck in their teeth. They go, and they're like, oh, what's wrong? Tell me.
Tell me what's wrong now.
Yeah. Anyway. That part of the song "Girl" kind of annoys me. Although it's a pretty good song otherwise.
Sorry, Paul, to bring on all the Beatles into your.
The Beatles are adult music. Those are great songs.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
Beethoven, the Beatles, to me, they belong in the same thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go on. Okay. Paul.
Yeah. Number 5.
That was me that interrupted that. I'll take the blame.
Right. That's right.
You send all your hate mail to me, okay?
Here, we're into another melody that everyone knows, the piano sonata number 14, Moonlight Sonata.
First movement.
27.
Moonlight Sonata.
Yeah. And so here, it's kind of an interesting intro to this theme that everyone knows. It's a rubato with a light touch. He keeps it melancholy and mostly straight. He adds some harmonic additions, but it's not too jazzed up here. I think he was being a bit conservative with the way he went with this one. No comment on that. As is.
I'll say something about it later.
Okay. Number 6, Symphony number 7. This is Opus 92.
This is the second movement.
Yeah,
the slow movement.
Yeah,
the really famous movement. Yeah.
It's got a dark and low beginning. He's playing it softly. The left hand starts to develop something rhythmic and bluesy as the tempo increases. And then his left hand makes a theme. Well, the familiar chords are in the right hand, but then they switch. So he switches left and right kind of skillfully here. Then he adds something new that's more expansive on the theme idea. And then it sort of becomes a kind of hypnotic 6/8 rhythm kind of section in there. That slows to a pause. And there's a new restatement with an interesting rhythmic backing, and it comes back to the previous theme and takes off into a final new exploration. So, this is another well-known piece, but he sort of dismantles it and tries some new things with it here. 7.
Okay.
La Lettre à Elise.
La Lettre à Elise. So Für Elise, the famous piano piece.
One of the most famous piano pieces. Well, this is a very interesting rhythmic variation for this one. It gets almost
like unidentifiable as that piece, really.
Almost a mambo-like vamp going here with kind of minor bluesy images. But it's hard not to like this. He's got some really nice breakdowns between phrases here too. So I thought this was a lot of fun. This is followed by another one of the original In Vienna pieces. This one's called Water Drops. There's a very modern moving harmonies on this one that have some sudden pauses, and then the high kind of tinkling notes here, they do remind you of water drops. And it's a very short piece too, so just a very kind of picture impressionistic kind of thing. Then we come to number 9, 5 Scottish songs.
I don't even know these in the original.
I don't know these.
Opus 108 too. They have an opus number.
Number 13, Come Fill My Good Fellow, arranged for jazz piano. It's a nice ballad treatment here. It's beautifully harmonized. The very dynamics and sense of touch are very nice, and he has a really fitting ending here. Number 10, we've got a French title.
Des sourires et des ombres. So of smiles and shadows.
Smiles and shadows. Yeah. This has got a kind of slow tempo, but a Latin type of motion to it. The harmonic colors are gentle, but the playing is very tender. The phrases kind of swell naturally where they reach climaxes, so the phrasing is nice. And nice, light and articulated high key phrases. It swells again. There's some descending cascades in the right hand, and once more restates the pretty melody for a nice ending. And then we've got track 11, another one of the originals in Vienna,
Heiligenstadt. This is now, named after the famous Heiligenstadt Testament of Beethoven, where he said that he was contemplating suicide, but decided not to do it because he was going to just go on and keep composing or something like that.
Yeah.
That letter written in 1803. You can look it up on Wikipedia if you don't know what I'm talking about.
So this one is it's a creatively harmonized modern waltz. There's different contrasting sections. It's a nice composition, and it also has a catchy melody. So this one is kind of fun. And then the last track, 12, is 7 Bagatelles. This opus
33. So this was written around the time of the this is the opus 33. Opus 33. That can't be right, because I'm pretty sure there's a set of piano sonatas around. Well, they're around those opus numbers, but this is really kind of in just before his heroic period. So it's kind of interesting that he's writing this here. I think of Symphony Number 5 would be his heroic, music. That's Opus 56. Right. So this is a little earlier than that, but he's working towards that, let's say.
So here he starts with some sparse phrases of the intro, and then these come kind of in separated pieces, but then they start to sort of lock together to form something. And then the melody comes together in a motion with a more jazzy feel. There's kind of a nice undulating left-hand support in the sections of these, and he takes off into some flights and bouncy excursions. Then the melody returns softly once more, kind of to a nice tidy ending. So, I mean, you've got something here, a pianist who's got, a foot in both classical and jazz worlds. And then is he going to pull it in? Is he going to make jazz fans and classical fans like this? Well, I don't know. I can say his technique is very impressive. And he's used, Beethoven's compositions as an inspiration for some kind of new, interesting improvisations. And then also he's got these original pieces sandwiched in here. So traditionalists may not approve of this kind of programming, but for everyone else, I think you can find something to enjoy here. I kind of liked it. I think he's not taking it too seriously, which is really good, especially in the first piece where he has this kind of, very, romantic, brooding kind of phrases alternated with the light jazz things. I think he's telling us, look, I'm having fun here. He pays enough respect to the compositional sense of Beethoven's pieces, keeping the integrity, but then he sees where they can inspire new ideas. So if you take it, with that sort of approach, and you're not too much of a Beethoven worshiper, then, I think you can enjoy it and just see that he's getting some ideas from, a more historical source. And his technique and playing is, really, really impressive. So
yeah, and to be honest, if you're a Beethoven worshiper and you don't like this, you need to lighten up, because that's what we in adult music are all about.
Exactly. Yeah.
We just want to enjoy. Come on, life is short, right? We're getting older here. It's all going to end one day. So let's
that's for sure.
Let's really enjoy this. Okay, what I want to say about this is, this isn't a record that's going to get into my record collection. But I did enjoy hearing it, and it's mostly because Paul Lay, he has good improvisational ideas. I really did enjoy what he came up with, not only on his own in Vienna pieces, but in his improvisations on Beethoven's themes. I thought he was really creative. He had a lot of he had interesting ideas, and they were jazzy enough too to get away from the classical music. So I like this album a lot more than I thought I would. So that's what I'll say. I thought it was good. It was I think it's something you need to be in the mood for, because you got to know you're going to hear all these Beethoven themes. But his creativity is really appealing to me. It was his ideas are fresh. I enjoyed it. Okay.
Yeah,
but I'm generally not a big fan of this sort of thing in general.
Me neither.
Let's say that.
I saw both of these. I listened to them, and I didn't know how I would fit them in, just because, as I said, I have my own kind of preferences for, the things that I listen to. Right. But then when I knew we were going to do this French theme, I thought, well, okay. These sort of fit that theme, and I'm glad I listened to them. Why
not? We should do more of these theme kind of
and I like to
episodes.
I want to stretch myself and be more open to different kind of ideas. And I thought, both of these were successful in their own way. I give Lay credit for, if you're going to use Beethoven as a base for your improvisations, you're going to piss some people off. And just because that's the way people are. I think you would have
back in the day. I think we're a little more. I hope. Geez, I hope we're a little more relaxed about music now.
Yeah, I guess. But I'm saying, it's like he could have just released his original sort of ideas separately there. But he went out on a limb, and I like that. But I do like the one before that too, de Chassy's ideas too. I think this kind of 2 years of musicians in isolation, and I like that introspective. But I also thought that works with the French theme really well. There's sort of impressionistic things that he came up with that he played for himself, and then he shared them with us. And I thought, I'm glad he shared those, because they were a nice thing to see, even though they weren't particularly jazzy. But maybe if it was, these ideas were thought of and worked out by just a classical pianist, they would have never been heard, because they wouldn't have been by a composer and like that. So as sort of a middle ground, both of these albums gave me a chance to listen to them as something matching a French theme, and so take a listen. You can't go wrong. They're not bad.
Yeah. By the way, before we get off this this kind of classical sort of theme, I want to talk about something about opus numbers that I learned from Robert Greenberg, who's a composer, and he also did a lot of series on the great courses, which formerly called the Teaching Company, that I saw. Classical music. We Russ was talking about how people may be offended by the Beethoven thing. Classical. They're still. I think I don't really run into them very often, but there are still people in the classical music. World, let's say, and they're usually audience members who know a bit about music and are a bit snobby about it, let's say. And Robert Greenberg gave some advice that I'd like to pass on about how to handle these people. When somebody is kind of going on about their superior knowledge about classical music, the way to combat these people is you memorize a few opus numbers. Okay, now I mentioned Beethoven's Symphony No. 5 is Opus 56. Okay, and you might want to remember Symphony No. 9 is Opus 125. So just remember, say 5 of these. And then when you're confronted with one of these people, and he's saying, "Oh, I thought the Fifth Symphony was, so-and-so," he's talking about the Fifth Symphony, and you could say to him something like, "Oh, well, I think Opus 56 is a little overplayed," or something like that. He says, as soon as you start talking opus numbers, people will back off and give you space. You're not going to be, Yeah. So that's one way to get these people to back off. Just have maybe 5 or 6 opus numbers memorized. You just throw that out at them, and they won't bother you anymore. Right. I found that it's true, actually. Yeah. So we're talking about those opus numbers again. Are the order that of a composer's published works. Okay, not the order he composed them, the order they were published in. Okay. Right. Okay.
Then if you talk about Nielsen opus numbers, then you're going to really have people running because
I actually don't know this myself. I should look them up.
I don't know them at all.
I don't know. But you want to know, a few K numbers from Mozart. Yeah. Mozart is should I tell people this one now that we're not in the classical thing? Kerschel listing. Kerschel was a Mozart kind of fanatic, a scholar who organized all of his music, and he numbered them all. So we honor him by calling them Kerschel, number. Okay, and then the number he assigned these pieces. Anyway, so much for that.
Indexing, recording. Well, makes things.
The problem with classical music is people usually give their pieces names like Sonata in A minor. What is that? Doesn't really say anything.
Yeah, it doesn't.
There are a million of those. So which one is it? Yeah. So you need those numbers to kind of know which sonata in A minor it is. Anyway.
So rounding out the week's jazz selection, actually, this one is not a new release, but it was new to me, and I wanted to include it,
and very welcome as well.
Yeah. So generally, I try to look at what's coming out, but things slip through the radar, especially in this time of, mainly digital releases and lots of self-releases that are coming out. And so things can come out and completely be unnoticed. And so I have several sources for jazz things that I'm always looking at the new releases. And this one didn't show up anywhere. And then it showed up about a week ago on one new release listing. And so I started listening to it. I said, oh, this is great. And then I looked and I saw, well, it actually came out at the beginning of the year, but it didn't show up anywhere else. It was, it didn't show up on Deezer lists, Apple, or anywhere. But since I liked it so much, I thought, well, what the hell? Probably a lot of other people haven't heard this yet. And so it's worth talking about. And since it's a kind of debut as a leader of a player, I wanted to talk about it. And it's the Italian pianist Bruno Diambra and Vesuviana, his debut. Well, I'm not quite sure on the release documentation. It's credited variously as a self-release and also as Records DK 2. And since I've never heard of that, maybe that's what he decided to call it himself.
It's available on Bandcamp. I looked it up there. I like this record a lot, and unfortunately, it's not available on any hard copy.
Not yet.
So
no.
if he's listening, I want to encourage him to put it out on a CD, because I would like to have a copy of this to put on the shelf.
Yeah. So this is a Italian pianist from Naples, and he's showing his Neapolitan roots.
Yeah, Naples, where my ancestors are from. So I'm a Campania guy here.
Campania. Yeah. And so he's got a release of a piano trio set of 8 original compositions here as leader. And, so something new. And I thought this is a really nice debut as a leader. He's got some side credits on other recordings, but he grew up in this region, and sort of his home environment is in the shadow of Mount Vesuvius as a geographic feature. Yeah, and but now he's he's been on the UK jazz scene for 20 years or so, working with some major players there, including Quentin Collins, Tony Crofty, and Nigel Price, who we had a couple weeks ago on
the organ
podcast. The organ guitarist, actually.
Oh, guitarist.
The organ trio, yeah.
The organ trio, but he's the guitarist, right?
He's the guitarist, right?
Yeah.
And so each one of these pieces is kind of inspired by a person, place, or situation from his life, and so. We've got all original stuff here, and kind of a pleasing initial recording as a trio format. He's joined here on drums by Emiliano Carossetti, and on drums, and on bass, Jason Reyes. And the title track, Vesuviana, opens up with a kind of dramatic vocal improvisation by instrumentalist Al Maranca.
Get a look at Maranca, I guess.
Maranca, yeah. So he sort of brings this kind of Neapolitan folk kind of vocal here. Is a very kind of folk, mysterious and longingness to the intro, but that transforms very quickly when the trio comes in. It certainly
does.
And the main tune is really gentle and happy, kind of major kind of thing, but interestingly, it's in a 5/4 time signature, which is unusual. But they pull that off smoothly, and Diambra comes in. His solo is really relaxed, and it shows really nice articulation and melodic sense. And the harmony has some really kind of pleasing modal shifts that move around here. And it's really kind of upbeat mood that establishes what this album is mainly about. And so you get a little taste of that local folk kind of, flavor, but then it goes into this sort of modern upbeat modal thing in the 5/4 time signature. Track 2 is Mandorla Kiss.
Nice title.
Yeah. And a really nice piano intro here. This is a little swinging ballad. And you'll see here he has a really nice kind of articulation and touch sense that he brings in here in his solo. He's got some really nice runs on his right hand. The piano sounds very bright. Reyes has a nice bass solo here that matches the mood. And then Diambra comes back in with a more melodic playing and a nice piano ending. Track 3 is called Top Geezer. This one is about his grandfather. Geezer, I guess, is kind of a nice one. It's fast syncopated bop tune here. Diambra comes right out of the gates really quickly for the first solo. And he shows a more aggressive side to his playing here compared to the earlier tracks. He trades off with the drums in the solo, and then the drums continue on until a repeat of the melody, and it's a fun little tune. All the tunes on this album are really short, actually, so they go right through. There's not a lot of extended playing here. Track 4 is called 3 for Train, and it's kind of a swinging waltz tune inspired by John Coltrane compositions. Here he shows some more modern harmonizations in the tune. a little bit different kind of chords here with his solo. Reyes has another good bass solo here where he shows his nice deep woody tone. And this is, it's a good composition based on, sort of jazz standards or originals, based, in this case by Coltrane. And the improvisation is a high level added on top of that. Number 5 is called, this tune is a really interesting one. It's called Midnight Road Rage. It's got a good
title too.
Yeah.
Midnight Road, sorry.
It's a great title. Yeah.
Midnight Road Rage. Yeah.
And this one will keep you guessing. There's a lot of stuff going on. It starts as kind of a medium blues tempo, but it speeds up and then it sort of jumps into this kind of repeating rhythmic vamp section. And when Domber comes in with his solo, it goes back to the bluesy idea. Then it hits that turbo beat where it steps up midway, and then he goes back to the vamp, and then like there's drum flares coming in. It keeps changing up, so it's not a standard blues by any of this. So, but it matches the title, Midnight Road Rage. So yeah, kind of a creative original composition. 6 is called Blue Pictures of You. This is a 6/8 ballad, some nice brush drumming that gives it a lift. It's kind of slow, but the drum subdivisions of the beat keeps it moving on. And another nice warm bass solo here from Reyes. And this one shows D'Ambra's articulation and touch in his subtlety in his playing. Number 7 is In for a Penny. And, if you're a jazz listener, and a lot of jazz standards, this one is going to immediately remind you of the tune Speak Low. It's just like, I don't even know if it's composed over the same chords or not, but it's really, really close to that tune. And the other thing about it is it's got those contrasting kind of straight kind of Latin beat and swing section pieces that sections that create tension, especially you're soloing along in a straight 8 period, then you come up and build up to that swing and then kind of thing, and so that really captures the spirit of what I thought was like Speak Low. And here D'Ambra swings really nicely through his solo, develops lots of interesting melodic ideas. He's a very melodic player. He's always coming up with really good melodies in his solos. And then in this one, he also trades off some 8-bar phrases with the drums before they come back to that one. And then the final tune, Concertina.
Yeah, Concertina.
Which
is I think Concetta would be like a woman's name, and Ina kind of means little, right?
Here, he hints at what this one is about. So Top Geezer was about his granddad, but Concertina is dedicated to his third grandmother. Well, I don't know what that means. So maybe it's another.
Mean like little Concetta. So
yeah. So maybe it's another older
really
woman
small.
who he, extended family or almost like family.
Also,
or something
Ina
like
can
that.
be a term of affection too.
Yeah. So maybe another woman that he grew up with, sort of matronly figure or something like that. But this one is it's kind of interesting to end with a ballad. Too. It's a really slow ballad with lush chords. There's a lot of space here, and then he can show some clear articulation on the runs in his solos here. I mean, another really nice Reyes bass solo, but this one he gets up into the higher register, which he didn't do in the other solos. And D'Ambra comes back, and he keeps it really nice and subtle with a real tender close. So this is obviously, dedicated to someone that he has a lot of attachment to. And a new pianist that I hadn't heard of, although, he's been an established clear on the, British jazz scene, but hailing from Italy, and I understand reading his profile, he's largely self-taught. But he seems to have all the tools here. He shows, original sense of kind of fresh compositions, nice phrasing. He doesn't overplay. He's got a nice touch and really upbeat style. Puts you in a good mood. Different moods in his compositions, and I think this one is worth giving a listen to, and a player that you want to remember his name and see what he comes up with next.
Yeah, enjoyable all the way through. I really want a CD copy of this, so if anybody... If Bruno, if you're listening, or if any of your people are listening, I want to encourage you to put this out on CD because I want to get a hard copy of it. By the way, I had mentioned like earlier on this podcast, we've been doing a lot of Italian like artists this year. It's like we have this thing for Italian artists. And here's another one.
Right.
It's been an extraordinary year for Italy. An Italian rock band won the Eurovision Song Contest. Then the Italian soccer team won the Euros, the European Soccer Championship. Italy in the Olympics, which just ended today, won more medals than they ever have before. I mean, they're hardly like at the top of the table, but it's an extraordinary year for Italy. And,
good year.
Apparently, it's a good year for Italian music as well. You know, it's Italian jazz and classical music because we've been talking about them a lot too. And I was thinking, oh, maybe we're biased towards this music, but no, maybe it's just a special year for them. It's really interesting. I don't know. I'm delighted personally, loving Italian things as I do. But, they're having an extraordinary year over there.
Yeah, in general, most of the jazz releases that I've thought were like, really interesting and was excited to hear were European. And we've had a lot of Italian ones, French ones, and then Scandinavian.
It's odd that we're not doing so many American ones, but they're off on a kind of darker tangent, I think. Well, but there are American artists that we love, and we're going to do them when they come out with albums. But I
had a feeling like like when we talked with Mike Ladone, and then that one, there were a lot of recordings that were made sort of like at the beginning of the sort of COVID thing, and then they were sort of held back, and so there may be sort of a pause in things that were intended to come out for various reasons that maybe are just coming out now or whatnot. So,
I want to encourage record companies. There's no need to hold records back because you have Extreme Music talking about your music.
Yeah,
we're here for you. So put those albums out. We want to hear them, and we'll make sure everybody else does too.
It's like you read all these things about how Hollywood is holding back on these movie release dates, because people aren't going to be going to the theaters or something like that. But music is different from that. If it's been recorded, you got to get it out,
just
as soon as possible.
People can like stream it now. They can just hear it wherever they are. They're all locked down anyway. So I mean,
you're more likely to get it listened to sooner under these circumstances. So.
It's just under the old style, the band can't like promote it by touring or giving performances or anything. But I don't think that matters at this point.
Yeah, we want to hear it, and
people like us will talk about it, and we'll
absolutely
get people listening. So, please release those records. Okay, and that's going to be it for us for a while. It looks like until at least mid-September. I'm sorry to say.
We'll be back in September, but we'll have we'll stock.
It's going to be a ton of music to talk about.
Stock up on the releases, and we'll be back for concluding the summer releases, and then looking forward to what's coming out in the fall. And
for Christmas too, we're gonna have all that stuff coming too. And the end of the year review. Well, I have all this stuff.
Yeah. So
there's already been a classical release of a Legrenzi, but Italian composer from the Baroque era, Legrenzi Christmas Mass. Came out in April or something like that, but I'm saving it for November. Figure maybe why not,
right?
Or December, get it ready for Christmas because that's when people are going to want to hear it anyway.
Yeah.
And why they released it so early in the year.
So we'll take a few weeks off and stock up on the music to talk about, and we'll be back in September. And
around mid-September.
I know
we will be checking our email, so you can feel free to write. We will respond. One of us will. Anyway, I'll be checking it anyway from where I am.
And, I know we've got a lot of new listeners because I've noticed every week in the past month or so, we've got quite a few people going back, checking out all the way back to Hello World.
Yeah.
So if you've just joined us recently and you haven't caught up on the past episodes or listened to the playlist,
we encourage you
to. Couple weeks to get up to speed on that, and we'll be back with some new recordings over the summer and fall releases in September. So until then, this has been episode 26 of Adult Music, the podcast with music for the mature mind, and we'll see you again soon in September.